Hi, welcome to the Anika Apple Podcast. I'm Anika Apple, author, trusted advisor, and spiritual strategist. And my work is to prepare leaders for a higher purpose and help them reconnect to the truth within so that they can live a remarkable life. Here, leadership is sacred, community is essential, and healing is a collective act of faith. Together, we align with our divine authority to lead boldly and to live life to the full. I'm glad you're here. This is where transformation begins. Welcome to this divine guidance episode for the month of October 2025. I am like full of just buzzing energy because there is so much happening in the world right now. God's instruction to me on today's episode is really clear to flow prophetically. And so I'm going to do that. There are two things specifically that God gave me to talk about specifically. And the rest will be fully open. For those of you who are new to me, this is a part of my divine guidance. This is a part of my Anika Apple podcast, but the divine guidance episodes are really just fully whatever God is saying to me. And typically I will sit with God and, I may or may not have some topics. I generally don't get any notes because that's how God has been moving. And so it really is just prophetically flowing through me. For those of you that are new to me, usually God shows me things that are anywhere from 16 to 18 months out. For the podcast, a lot of what I receive has a lot further um, a further outreach of what is happening in the world that I receive in my one-on-one time with God. But that is good background for you to have. Now, here's the thing: I always start off the podcast episodes for divine guidance, reminding you that it's really important whenever you are hearing a prophetic word that you're always taking it back to God. We should never just take things as face value in the way that we understand them in our humanness. Everything needs some level of clarification. And so by taking the word back to God, you can ask two things. One, is this word relevant for me? And two, how, now that the answer is yes, how should I go about applying it in my life? To just have the information and not have an understanding of application is really missing the whole intent. The words that God gives us are to help us be prepared to have greater clarity and to understand how to move forward, to navigate the times that we're in. So I'm going to jump right in, and I'm just pausing in this moment to ask God where they want me to start. So the first thing that God said to me is, let them know that I am doing it. And I said, well, you are doing what? And this is our first theme for today. I am doing it. So what would happen to you if you started from the point where you believed that whatever it was that was happening in your life, that God's hand was already on it? I'm doing it. And so in some situations, we might find ourselves navigating something that we're like, I don't like what this situation is, right? And so we immediately go to, this is bad, it's happening, to me, it's causing me harm, it's going to create, all of these issues. And what if the starting point was, I believe that God is doing a thing. And so whatever this is creating an opportunity for me to grow or to be strengthened, to transform, to change or to shift directions, to release people or things that are no longer supporting the best and highest purpose in my life. What if it was you deciding that something is happening and maybe that's not favorable, but you trust that God already has their hand on the thing, right? That you're not waiting for God's response. A lot of times we get caught up in this cycle of being anxious and frustrated and all of that stuff because it looks like nothing's happening. But if you sit with this energy of I'm doing it, let that be God's response to you, that God is already moving on your behalf, or that God has orchestrated the thing that will then create this clarity, this joy, this levity, this abundance, this favor across the areas of your life. So what could it look like for you to shift that mindset? We're in a time where our mindset is incredibly important. And a lot of you are experiencing fogginess is the word that I'm hearing. Like, it's like there's so much happening that you're trying to make sense of all of it. And let me tell you, In the pile of stuff, right? In the amount of noise that you receive in any given day, there's a very small portion of it that actually matters. And the rest of it is smokescreen. The rest of it is just a lot of stuff for you to sort through that keeps you in the place of stress and angst. It keeps you away from being grounded in truth. It keeps you away from being clear about what it is that you need to know in order to continue to advance in the direction of your purpose for this lifetime. And so if you can begin to move away from like trying to filter and make sense of all the things and accept things as they are, it will change your entire experience. It's not just about being able to navigate in the moment, but it's about the freedom that you feel when you let go of trying to make sense of everything. The Bible tells us really clearly that God's ways are not our ways, that we are not to lean on our own understanding. And all that says is that even for those of us who have gotten to a place in our journey where we recognize that God is more expansive than we ever thought, or maybe how we were raised, right? We still see about this much of all that God is doing. And so it's really important for us to not put these guardrails up around what we think God has the ability to do. It's like you saying, well, I want something to look like this, but I think that God only has this much space to navigate. No, that's what our limitations are in our humanness. So opening ourselves up to whatever it is that God is doing creates the space for us, holding space for God's miracle, God's blessing, for the breath of what God desires to do in our lives to be possible. And the more that we try to make sense of it, the more time we are wasting. We are supposed to have the opportunity, the promises are to walk in this lifetime lightly, to walk lightly, to not have to carry the heavy burdens. And so much of the time, because we're trying to make sense of things, we think that we must do something in order for something else to happen. God says, I'm doing it, meaning let me lead, let me show you, let me help you, let me reveal to you. Seek me so that you know that the efforts that you're putting forth are on the things that are your part to do, but I'm doing it. Can you trust that I've already made a way? Can you trust that I am showing you what the edge of transformation looks like? Can you trust that I'm going to reveal the thing to you in its time so that you have the ability to enjoy and benefit from it in a way that allows you to experience it from a place of levity, from a place of joy, from a place of hope? Not this heaviness of how you're navigating in the world. One of the biggest conversations that's swirling right now is how do people keep themselves feeling sane when there's so much happening in the world, because it looks like a hot mess. But if we listen to what God is saying, I'm doing it, then that makes us pause for a second, right? So what does it mean if there is this thing that looks very disheveled happening in the world and God is saying, I am doing it? Can we then pause not to trust what we're seeing and the experience that we have in our humanness, but to trust God? To say, God, well, if you're doing this, I maybe can't make sense of it because my ways are not your ways. Because in my own understanding, I would never do it this way. But then I recognize I also don't know 5 steps ahead. I also don't know 2 years ahead. I also don't know all of the different things that are factoring into the reason that you're doing things in the way that you're doing them to now. But yet I trust you. But I still trust that whatever it is that you are doing is for your divine purpose. I trust you with me. Do you trust God when God says, I am doing it? Your first assignment from this episode is to take that phrase and to sit with God and understand, where in your life is God saying to you, I am doing it? And what does it mean to you? Because as you've heard from the opening, there's so many different ways that we can use this terminology. God's orchestrating it. This is God's plan. Can you trust God to do and deliver the thing? Can you trust God to lead you through the thing? Can you trust that even when it doesn't make sense, it doesn't mean it's not God? We are heavily influenced by people whose perspectives are based in what they see here in the earth and not in alignment with what God is saying. And for the last several divine guidance episodes, I've been talking about the importance of strengthening your relationship with God, trusting your gifts, leaning on what God is saying to you, because there are going to be moments where the crowd is running in one direction, pardon me, and where God is going to send you in a different direction. You've got to be able to know where it is that God wants you to go so that you have what you need, so that you are safe in the way God desires for you to be. And all of that talks to an environment right now where there's so much misinformation and misdirection and misunderstanding. People will tell you things that they believe are true, but it doesn't mean that they're right. So how can you tell what's true from what's not? You have to sit with God. You've got to sit with the divine. You have to be tapped in to that which you believe in is bigger than you. You have to be, because it is the only way you'll be able to decipher. And when you have a question about whether or not what you're hearing is true, you're going to have to make a decision. So make it based on you having the exploratory conversations with the divine so that you know you can get as close to whatever level of confidence is absolutely possible, as opposed to sitting in this place of indecision and then just following the masses, because that will land you in a place that you certainly do not want to be. And that is just fact. If it was your starting point to sit in a place where you believed God says, I am doing it, what would it open up for you? What would it free up for you? What would it allow you to do differently in your life? What choices and decisions would you make? Would you lean back from taking the risks, or would you step out more on faith? When God says, I'm doing it, where the first place it takes me to are the promises that I have read, that I have heard, that God has shown me, that God has written, that God has delivered through messengers. I go to the promises. And I think about all of the things that have been, in my opinion, held up, because in my humanness, I think it should all have happened already, right? But I recognize and I can hold space for the fact that I've still been growing all through this journey. And so if there's something I thought that should have happened 5 years ago, and I look at the person who I am now, I know unequivocally that the things that I have grown and healed through put me in a much better place to care for whatever God wants to put in my hands. So I always thank God for the brilliance of waiting until I am in a place where I'm really ready to receive that which God desires to give me, so I don't squander it, so I don't let it slip through my fingers, so I don't lose it, so I don't misuse it, so I don't abuse it. It's really important for us to recognize that that doesn't mean God wasn't doing the things. Part of the thing that I may be waiting for or desiring has to come from my readiness and my own preparation, my own journey through healing. There's a perspective shift when we trust that God is doing a thing. Can you just in this moment hold that what God is doing is for your good, even if you don't fully understand it, even if you cannot hold it right in this moment, even if it requires you to go through some challenges, because those things are shaping you in preparation for what God is doing in your life. The next theme that God gave me, and then the rest of this will just be flowing as God leads me today, is to share a story with you. And I did not know I was going to be sharing this story, but I do whatever it is that God leads me to do. So I'm going to do that. This is about putting all your eggs in one basket. I learned a really valuable lesson a few months ago. And I will say, I respect the challenges of running businesses today, the authenticity of what's happening. I look sometimes at how prominent putting content together through AI has become in our society, and I am not opposed to in any way saying that that is not part of what this journey is, but I also recognize that it creates a lot of complications for organizations. And one of the things that's really dangerous, and it's interesting that it happened to me in this way, because this is definitely a message that God has been sharing with me for a while. It took me a minute to understand and to realize what was actually happening. But, we have become perhaps overly reliant on some ways that we communicate, that we build, that we strengthen and design our businesses. And anytime we put something that we own, that we are growing, that we're developing in the hands of someone else that has a different agenda, it is a recipe for, I'm going to call it risk, and then I'm going to say disaster, right? Risk with the potential of disaster. In my instance, in my story, there is a particular platform that I would say I had the most activity on, most frequently there. A preference, perhaps outside of where you are seeing my podcast today, because that is certainly a preference as well. But this particular app where I used it all the time, and in short, my account was shut down. And more of the story that I'm not going to share in this moment because it's irrelevant, as I look up to God to be like, is that accurate? Basically, for whatever reason, the account was shut down. The point is that for the last 4 months, I've not had access to the account. And one of the early things that happened to me was I recognized, like, if I had built my entire business, my lead magnets, my funnel, my lead gen, my outreach, all of my media, spent all of my dollars there building all of that. And quite honestly, a portion of it was all there. But in an instant, just like that, a decision that was 100% out of my hands could cause me to be disconnected from all of it. And this is not unusual, right? I'm not the only person that has ever experienced this. And sometimes there may be things that actually do violate a guideline, and in some cases they may not be. I am pretty clear that I didn't violate any guideline. However, I don't have the ability to have immediate recourse to change the situation around. And there's a really important example for us to learn from here. Because when we put all of our eggs in one basket and things shift, you are stuck. And even though I had access to multiple other ways to build, I can tell you honestly, for me, I struggled because it was the place I was most familiar, that I felt the most comfortable, and that I felt I had put the most effort into. And I want you to pause and think about this for a second in the span of how you design your businesses, how you move through life, the ways that we look at the streams of income. We're at a time right now where there's a lot of different stories about how it's happening in the job market, right? Many of us know people who have lost their jobs. We know organizations that have gone through significant shifts, some related to AI, some related to what's happening in the marketplaces, some truly because they're looking at different organizational structures that are fit for purpose for where the business is going, right? All of these things, for whatever reason they happen, they happen. And that means that people are now looking for, new opportunities to work, et cetera, so forth. So imagine the person who's been in a company dedicated to that organization for 30 or 40 years, who then finds themselves now without a job. Imagine the person who has been building their business using a particular platform or service, and that service just goes away. There's no recourse for so many of these situations, and you are just called to have to do something different. This is why this message is so relevant to you in this moment, because you're seeing these examples of it happening in the world. But what is happening with each and every one of us is we are being called to take a look at what we have created value in our lives. What do you place a high value on? And I'm not going to go as far as to call it an idol, but you can look at your own life and behavior and make a determination if it is that. What are the things we place such high value on that we don't know what to do when the thing is broken? We don't know what to do if the thing has shifted. Some of you have been getting information from God for a long time where God has been telling you, you need to diversify where you hold your stock. Some of you have been told that you need to look at the financial systems differently. I know I have, right? Some of you have been told that it's time for you to transition out of a particular job or an industry, or maybe to move into a different role. Some of you have been called to create streams of residual income. Some of you have been called to write a book, to create a show, to, do whatever it is. And we're sitting waiting on the perfect time to do those things because we like the place where we are with the thing that we're comfortable with. If God had said to me clearly at the beginning of this year, there's going to come a time for you in the middle of the year where you're no longer going to be able to use this app. So I want you to go build over here. I like to think I would have done it. The question is, when God kept saying, I want you to deliver your divine guidance this way. I want you to deliver it live and to do it through this platform to these other platforms. I want you to build a, community in this place. I literally said about this other app, I was like, if I had the ability to go live, I would do it all the time. And then I got the ability to go live in like 7 days after that. And then I went live a couple times and then I stopped. And then I dabbled again and then I stopped, right? I asked for the thing and then God gave it to me and I sat with it. I want you to understand, putting all our eggs in one basket is a problem because we don't have all of the clarity with exactly what decisions people are going to make and how that will then impact us. Do you not see how the system has been created around you to be beholden to decisions that other people have the ability to make? When I observe people who are buying farmland and are building their own farms, when I look at places where communities are looking at how they can create community gardens and support one another, when I look at the way that people used to be so insular and not know their neighbors, but they're actually trying to get out and post-COVID reconnect with people, I understand the mindset. I understand the brilliance of God, who said months and months ago through one of these episodes, you've got to be in community with one another because it's how you're going to withstand the times that are coming. We cannot put all our eggs in one basket. You drop the basket and you're done. The eggs are gone. And then you will likely do what I did when I ran into this situation with the platform and I was stuck. And then I grieved. And I'm like, why am I grieving this thing? You got to have a plan that's not a plan B. It's a plan A as an ecosystem where you can see all of the different parts, where you already know strategically, if this thing doesn't work, I'm going to go do this thing this way, and that way. You got to be able to be in a place where you're like, okay, God, so what else am I supposed to be working on? Perhaps it's time for you to put some fervor behind the things that God has been telling you to do. If I go back to the time when live became an option for me on this other platform, and I think about what it would have looked like to methodically build over time, I would have had a followership that perhaps it would have taken me maybe a couple days to be able to let go of what happened. But because I was so attached to the comfort that I enjoyed of using this particular platform, I was stuck. Looking down the pike at this opportunity to launch my book, knowing that this is a place where I had real engagement, however small or large, and compared to what other people might think, for me, it mattered. And what I know, because God led me to share this with you today, is that there are implications of this in your life that may not look like my exact story, but there's opportunities in front of you that you are supposed to be building on today that you are letting sit dormant. And by doing that, you're choosing to put all of your eggs in one basket. And I am very clearly here to tell you, don't do that. It's not about being disloyal. It's not about spreading yourself thin. It's about having a strategy that can last regardless of the decisions that are outside of your span of control. How would you connect with customers and clients, potential customers and clients, if some form that you use today is shut down? If a platform no longer exists, where do you house the information? How would you recover? When I worked in corporate America, we did these business recovery initiatives every single year. We looked at what are the things that are most likely, and we picked some things to navigate through so that we could pressure test ourselves to make sure we were ready to respond to whatever it was that might come up. You need that kind of business continuity plan in your life. You need a life continuity plan too, because not everything that is going to happen will you have enough advance notice to be able to navigate in the way that you would like it. Why do I say in the way that you would like it? Because when God opened the doorway for me to grow on this other platform, there wasn't a directive like you have to grow there in a certain amount of time, but God gave me all the things I said I needed. And this is the lesson on the other side of it, right? Is navigating through growing in the midst of book launch as opposed to having, half a year to grow a great followership there and to have some other ways to stay connected with the people who, I want to reach. All of our eggs in one basket is really troublesome. And more importantly, as I've been saying for episode after episode, that we are in a time where we are going to experience some of the systems of this world failing us in ways that we cannot imagine. You don't know what it is that will have to come to disruption in order for things to shift in the way that is intended. And because we don't have all of that information, the best thing that we can do is be in constant conversation with God to understand what God is showing us. Like, where should our focus be? And the part you get to walk away from with today is to not put all your eggs in one basket and to allow yourself to think more broadly about what you want the experience to be in your business, in your life. The systems that are ruled by other people can be shut down and taken away at any time. Let us learn from those examples and not make the whole of everything that we do around them. And that might look different for each of us, and that's okay. But it's important to heed this part of the message. And God is saying right now, I want you to know that this time is incredibly complex. You're not just simply feeling this level of complexity and thinking that, oh, is it just me? No, it is very complex. In your mind, you desire to see it in a certain way, to understand this as being like a very simple time. This is this way, this is that way, but it's not. There's so many different layers here. And there are players that you cannot see. They're invisible behind the scenes, pulling strings and shifting things in ways that you couldn't imagine. And a lot of this is going to be unfolded before us. The curtain is going to come down. It's going to literally fall as if you're looking on a stage. It's going to fall. And you're going to see the people not just out on the stage, but you're going to see the people behind them. And God says, and even though you desire to know truth, it will be devastating. You'll be blown away by what you see. And unfortunately, it all has to fall. And when it becomes apparent to you, you'll go through your process of grieving. It's important for you to know that while it will feel very undesirable to you, things must come to a certain end in order for what's new to be birthed. There's so many different divisions between people today, and there is a great divide coming in households. And part of what you can do to navigate through that today is begin the ritual of reconnecting. Reconnect from a place that is pure within your heart. Demonstrate true love for one another as individuals, respecting the differences of perspective and ideas. Ideology doesn't have to be the same in order for people to live together in harmony. And if you can't do that within your own home, you won't be able to do that in the world. This is a time of reconciliation. You'll want to reconnect with your family and friends, with the people who you have been estranged from. That doesn't mean opening doors that I have shut, but it does mean reconnecting with those who you have longed to make amends with. It's better that you should have those conversations now and today and reconnect in a way that is honorable than to miss the opportunity to reconnect at all in this lifetime. It's important for you to know that things are shifting around you. The way that you will have access to things like groceries is going to shift. It won't be easy for the time. It will be very complex. And it's okay. Many of you will choose to survive through it. But it will not be easy. But it will be okay. I've given so much instruction to you over your lifetime. There are things as recent as yesterday and things back when you were 5 and 10. And all of these things I have been showing you throughout your life's journey to prepare you for this time and what is up ahead. If you believe and know that you do have everything that you need, you'll be able to navigate through what is up ahead. Just remember that I am turning the tables. And remember that I'm always victorious. And it's always up to you to choose. I will never take your choice from you. Thank you, God. There's some moments coming that are, they're heavy. And one of the most complex parts about being in this time is that even though those things are heavy and difficult for us to understand, for many of us, we are going to go through a time that is incredibly favorable is the word I want to use. And it's just hard to place that next to what I see and know about this time. But it's all with purpose. I think for those of you who know and you've been shown that God's light is upon you, that you are favored, that you are already experiencing some shifts in abundance and growth and elevation, that this is intentional. And that even though you have all of that happening to and around you, that it doesn't mean that it's not difficult and complex to navigate when your neighbor is not having the same experience. But it is with intention. And so when you are in the place where you're feeling the disconnect between what's happening in your lives and perhaps what's happening in the lives of others, your family, friends, etc., to make sure that you're sitting with God and you get the clarity. I would ask you to hold on to this notion that there has to be a light shining in order for people to see the light. And it's very possible that you are the light. It's very possible that you are the one that is supposed to help illuminate others. Your hope, your faith, your steadfastness, your seeking God, your being in alignment with who you know you were created to be, that's what's needed in this world. And if you can focus on that, it will help you to navigate through the times. In the same way that you have been going through your life's journey and you have been experiencing your different lessons that have led you to say yes to walking in your purpose, to being who you're called to be. And be clear, this doesn't mean that I think that you're doing all the things. I'm just saying yes is enough. that just getting to that place, you've already gone through the journey that you're going to witness many other people have to go through. Because perhaps they weren't ready to say yes yet. But when they get to see you walking in your light, it creates the space for them to trust that it's safe for them to walk in theirs. Listen, we're going to get through this time together, and I will be here. I know that this is my work to do, is to be a place where you can come for truth, where you can hear what God is saying. You are welcome to go back through the archives. I created a divine guidance playlist specifically so that if that's all you want to hear, you can go back and listen to all of the things that God has been saying through me. They're here. So many of the things have already happened, and you can see the evidence of what God has been preparing us for. I will be here to continue to bring the preparation to you and to share what God is saying. And my ask of you is that you take it and sit with God, and then you move in alignment with who you are called here to be. I like to say that my work is to call people forward into their purpose. And so that is where I'm going to leave this episode today. That's where I'm going to leave the episode today. I'm calling you back to who you know you were born to be. And I know for many of you, it feels scary to have to leave and like what has become comfortable and your norm. And you're right. As someone who, left a beautiful 6-figure job and great career to follow what God has been showing me is my role in the world, I can just tell you, it's not been always easy, and certainly not easy for other people around me to understand the choice and decision. But everyone's faith has grown through watching God move through my journey, especially my own. And the one thing I can say unequivocally is that being in alignment with where God positions you in the world, there's nothing better. That is how I can sit with peace in the midst of the complexity that we are in today. I can't say all of what exactly will happen at every single moment, but God is speaking to me, God is preparing me, and God reminds me that I am covered. And I feel like that's what we all need to have as we navigate in the times up ahead. Before I go, I do want to share with you, for those of you, again, whose first time it is on the podcast, thank you for coming and joining me for this month's Divine Guidance episode, October 2025. I have a new book that is launching next month in November. It is called Healing is Required. And the book is all about the why and the what of healing. What is healing? Why does it matter to God? And how are we all connected? And the book is full of beautiful downloads. The book was given to us by God. And I always say us because I feel that I'm the first recipient of the book. And in addition to having all of the background and understanding and beautiful way that God describes healing through the words that God gave me, there's practical application as well. So you get the full experience of understanding healing at a really deep level, and then also knowing how to build your path forward practically. The reason I think this is so important for all of us is that healing is a success strategy. The way that we navigate through the world is impacted by the things that we choose not to heal. So what that means is the way you show up at work, the way you show up with your partner, with your kids, with your community, it's impacted by whatever is happening on the inside of you. And I think we all owe it to each other to do more and more each and every day to become the next best version of ourselves, right? To keep on up leveling ourselves. The book is available at www.healingisrequired. And of course, I will link it down below. Or you can visit my website at anikaapple.com. But I'd love for you to just take a look at the book and hear a little bit of what the early readers are saying. I know that this book is transformational, and quite honestly, I will just tell you that it is laced with healing. Like, you will sit with the book and experience whatever it is that you need, because that's what God poured into it. And I am just honored to be the vessel that got to bring it here into the world. So I look forward to seeing you next week on the Anika Apple Podcast. We are chronicling through the journey of writing the book, Healing is Required, and highlighting some of the key components in the book through the podcast through the rest of this year. And so you'll get the opportunity to hopefully get your hands on a copy of the book soon, and then also hear some of the writing processes, as well as learning about some of the ways in which I recommend in the book that you can really strengthen and amplify your healing process. So thank you so much for joining me. Let me know how this episode was for you, what things came up for you. Please feel free to share comments. And of course, if you're interested in reaching out to learn more about the book or to talk about opportunities to be on the podcast, you can do that by reaching out to us at connect@anikaapple.com. I wish you peace and blessings, and I'll see you next week.